Well, hey, welcome back. It is Snoo. This is going to be another build showcase video featuring part 2 of the Affliction League Break the Meta series. It's 3.23 still, and the maps are really hard with the Affliction mechanic, requiring players to have a particularly well-rounded build. Tornado Shot's pretty difficult to pull off this league, but I have yet another build, and this is going to be the final build of the league. Can't wait to share it with you. It is also a bit off meta. There are definitely some things about it that are deviations from what most players were doing at the real tail end of the end game this league, at least as far as Tornado Shot's concerned. But there are some things that I've reverted back to being much more in alignment with the meta. For example, pure fizz to cold conversion. That's a big one. And another big one is Sniper's Mark. Putting Sniper's Mark back in. A lot of people were kind of critical about my choice to run Warlord's Mark. I think the build showcase and the build functioned pretty well in the first one, but that one really put an emphasis on tankiness, defensives, still having speed, and sacrificing a little bit of the damage. This one, we are shifting some of the tankiness back into damage, so it is a little bit weaker, but we do have freeze back into the build. Kind of hard to do this league with the mobs being so tanky, but I got a little bit of a workaround. Show you in a couple minutes here. But yeah, we're going to start this video like normal. TLDR, you know, what makes the build kind of special, a little bit unique. And then we'll get into a partial map showcase. Then, of course, the gear, let's see, the skills, the jewels, the passives, and of course the path of building, look into some calculations, configurations, stuff like that. So the character's right here, and let me get started. I already have a map open, have a decent, nice map here that has, you know, a little bit of juice, almost 9,000 juice, so a little bit more than the previous showcase. I figured it was probably a good idea to do that since a lot of people have not even really seen this build. I have been running it on Twitch, though, for the past week, I suppose. A lot of people really liked it. So, what makes this build kind of special? Well, Secrets of Suffering is gone. Okay, Secrets of Suffering gone, so back to Chill, Shock, and Ignite. However, only doing cold damage. So I can only chill and freeze, right? No, actually I can shock anyway. So here's the major kicker for this build. Not doing the Primalist Ascendancy, which is very strong, and, you know, definitely the meta choice. Getting up to 3 additional projectiles, no questions asked, is certainly the meta for, you know, in any budget Tornado Shot build this league. But I have discovered that shock can more than make up for even 3 projectiles in terms of damage. When you look at the calculations, we'll hopefully remember to show you, but if you were to substitute 3 projectiles, giving me 11 instead of 8 in total, out for shock at all, at least at maximum shock threshold, which of course is not always the case, but at least at maximum shock threshold, that's even more damage than 3 projectiles. So that's part of the cool reason why to go Warden of the Maji. Of course, the main reason why you go Warden of the Maji is to get the ever-beloved, and I've talked this Ascendancy notable up time and time again this league. Not this one, sorry, this one. Detect Evil is so incredibly strong. I want you to pay close attention. If you haven't seen this Ascendancy notable in action, you're going to see the little yellow and brown icons on the map for the Abyssal Spires, for all the Abyssal Tunneler, the major rares that come out. Extremely beneficial in helping me perform Abyss. Also very beneficial in helping me identify immediately where the Legions spawned. And since the Legions are extra tanky, that's kind of a big deal. Got Sniper's Mark back in. Still sporting Punishment as a sort of 2-in-1 curse. Only curse maximum of 1. But either Punishment or Sniper's Mark will be lit up on enemies at all times. And to help with the incredibly tanky mobs that are not going to get frozen very well, Blast Freeze is going to play a big role in helping me tank the Abyss mobs, because I actually have way less EHP on this build than the other one, almost half as much EHP. In fact, you can even tell I had almost 4k life on the other build. This one I had 3.5k life. I had to sacrifice a few points like Hired Killer and the Mastery here to fit everything in. But anyway, no Fury of Nature, no Forbidden Flame Flesh Jewels like that, although I do have, I suppose I got, yeah, the usual, I guess you could say, the 5 Deadeye points in there. So, those are kind of the major things about the build that's a little bit different from the first one, or maybe a little bit different from the meta, and you know, just kind of putting it all together makes a really nice build. Let me show you a map showcase now. And yeah, just about basically any other things I didn't mention are essentially the same as before with the first build. So here we go. There will be a link for the path of building in the description of the video, and as well as the Atlas passive points here. But you can see beasts are back on the menu, so I've just kind of been flopping back and forth here whether I want to do beast or not. But honestly, like, this map probably doesn't have any, I would guess this map doesn't have any modifiers to it in which enemies take less damage. But wow, I mean, you can see the damage is certainly up there again. Maybe we'll get a chance to see, let me see this beast here. 30% shock on that beast, not too bad, right? Not maximum, but you know, I'm not going to be hitting a yellow beast all that hard. Generally one of the more tankier mobs in here, so it was kind of cool. Got to see a little bit of the shock values. That is important to tell and try to get a sense of how much damage you're dealing. 18% shock on that red beast. Well, a little less, I guess. But anyway, got the rampage on. The weapon swap was triggered, and I'd say I'm rocking here pretty good on this 9K juice map. I did recently get a couple upgrades, basically just in the form of more quant on my belt and my ring. Nothing else really changed. Alright, so we're going to do, I suppose we'll do like a couple abysses here since I haven't even showed this one out. You can see the yellow icons popping up. That's every rare mob that's showing up. It's going to be really beneficial and helping me know where the threats are on the map. And again, honestly, the absolute best thing about the build is being able to use Warden of the Maji again. I really did miss that as an option for the league. Extremely beneficial for the Wildwood as well, being able to kind of anticipate. It can even guide you on where to go find the next event if you're kind of nearby. All right, weapon swap here with the usual. Swing around one more time and get some nice juicy lag in here. Ooh. All right, you see, so I was able to take care of it all right. Check this out. I immediately know where the spawns are. Super beneficial. And let's take a look at my rage situation, okay? I got some rage going on. Apparently missed one mob here, but watch my rage bar here. You can see it filling up here the second I have any enemies to hit. And that's really interesting because when I need it the most, I have the rage. Thanks to the tincture. There is no internal cooldown on this, which is, you know, I had somebody inform me a while back about this tincture being overpowered. I was like, really? How could it be that overpowered? But then I realized if, indeed, it has no internal cooldown with Tornado Shot, that's going to be absolutely bonkers, especially if the enemies are tanky. So I really do kind of like this build on those like 10 to 12k juicer map where the mobs really are a bit tanky. It just keeps slamming them, you know, with 100 arrows a second, basically. And basically just the rage is just constantly topped off. Let's pay close attention to what happens to the rage here on this Abyssal Spire here. You can kind of see the timing window when all of these spawn. Now look at that. I mean, I just got maximum rage. Maximum rage easily. And so I kind of like this option over Warlord's Mark in the sense that, you know, Warlord's Mark is just kind of giving me a lot of rage, but not necessarily when I need it or want it. Especially like one-on-one against like a map boss or something, I won't even necessarily get any. But here, you know, when I'm in a bad situation, sticky situation with just a bunch of really tanky, nasty rare mobs, or you know, a rogue exile or something like that, I got the rage, and it works out really nice. So definitely a big fan of this tincture. But this is a one-off thing, and it's not going to be available next league, unlike the Warlord's Mark tech will be. So you might have noticed I was able to get endurance charges again. Quick fun fact, I actually forgot to mention the last video that endurance charges were another thing I got that most builds do not have. But I was still able to get endurance charges in this one, thanks to the Elegant Hubris, as well as Headhunter, of course. But anyway, that's it for the map showcase. Just a couple of legions and a couple of abysses. You saw it wasn't too bad. The FPS dropped, of course, but was still able to handle it pretty well. I had Berserk up most of the time when it mattered, and that was the important thing. Again, not always the case before with the other build. So, let's get into all the gear. here we go. Same exact bow, and we're gonna go. This video is gonna be a little shorter because a lot of the gear is like identical. So I'm not gonna spend quite as much time talking about the exact same gear in cases where it is the same. So this is the best bow I think in the league for this build. I'm still using an Elegant Hubris with Supreme Ostentation. So the 15% increased explicit fizz modifiers enchant is absolutely the best here. This is the highest damage. In this case, I do actually need the crit chance roll. This build is not able to get crit cap nearly as easily. That's fine. We have some workarounds like the Watcher's Eye. And that which was taken Jewel, actually, which we'll look at in a moment here. Okay, now we have something a little different. Viper Impaler is a different quiver. Can't remember exactly where it comes from. I just bought this straight off trade. It's actually the exact same quiver as before, except instead of fizz as extra fire, which was an 8% roll, which was very useful for Trinity conversion Trinity build. In this case, we're going for the fizz to cold conversion, of course. So this is kind of like the best quiver for a fizz to cold conversion build. Well, it depends on if you want the projectile speed, in which case tornado shot. Yeah, we'll do that. Should probably link down to the gloves because you'll be wondering, well, what about the conversion on the gloves? Of course, I could get the implicit there, but I don't have exposure otherwise in the build. A few different ways to get it, but this is probably the best setup overall. And it's essentially the same as the other gloves, except it's got cold conversion instead of fire or lightning conversion. And it's got cold exposure as well. The rage on hit, not very useful here. It doesn't even mean all that much. It's just kind of nice to have a little bit of passive rage, but definitely the tincture doing most of the heavy lifting there. Now for the helmet, because these are the two big rare items, the helmet is identical. It's the exact same helmet as before, so I still needed accuracy. And I thought about changing the helmet, maybe dropping rarity or whatever, but I just felt like it wasn't that necessary. And it looks like the mana cost is 1 less than last build. I'm not sure why, but 1 less. But anyway, there we go. That is the helmet. Still got the Pain Pendant Simplex Amulet. I think this is the best in slot overall for a tornado shot build because projectile speed is so strong. We have the boots here. In this case, I do actually need the +1 socketed gems for the Awakened 5 support, and so basically I substituted out let's see, I subbed out, oh yeah, Skitterbots, which is 35% reservation, for haste, which is more reservation, and that required me to add a mastery and mandated that I have a level 6 enlightened to do that. So that is very hard to replicate and be very expensive to do that overall. But anyway, that is how I managed to get an extra major aura in the build. Greed's Embrace, the same as before. The level 6 enhanced support, not super mandatory, but it's nice to have. Definitely need the reduction to extra crits for the blue. I recommend this for literally any mapper this league. That implicit, the one where you take less damage from critical strikes. Headhunter is new, 5% quant. So this is one of the reasons why I have less EHP as before, because I no longer have a 60 life explicit and 48 life implicit, I think it was. So I did lose a little EHP there for that quant. That's fine. Just came out with a video with me Hinekor locking Aventor. It took 60 tries to hit quant. Not perfect, but 4%. Pretty extraordinary to actually hit this. Super thrilled to hit, so that's cool. Currently now have 105% increased quantity of items found counting the tincture tech, or 101% increased items found not without tinctures involved. Calandra's Touch, self-explanatory there. And as you can see, I really need a lot of help with the resistances, just like before. Okay, this is without endurance charges, but barely over cap. And no longer reduced effect of, let's see, curses involved. So yeah, I just want to point that out, because I guess we're moving on to the flasks. And last time, my flask had reduced effect of curses, but in this case, I no longer have my charm that gave me additional projectile and cannot be stunned while leeching. Now I need the stun immunity somewhere. Would prefer to have it somewhere if possible. So I got it on the Quicksilver Flask here. Still the exact same divination, Distillate, Progenesis, and Taste of Hate involved. Taste of Hate, of course, feels even better with this build than the last one. But the last one, it could create some issues with Trinity, working with the Fizz to Element conversion, trying to divide them up. But Taste of Hate, of course, being extremely strong for this build. And then the Tincture. Now, I know a lot of people are going to ask, well, hey, Snoo, what about the additional projectiles? Yes, the perfect Tincture would likely be the Rage on hit against rare or unique enemies, and +2 projectiles if you've been hit recently, in which case I absolutely would sub out Punishment for Forbidden right there, I think, to really guarantee that in. And that would be like... I mean, that would really make this build special if I had that. Do way more damage. But in this case, I do like the Onslaught one. I feel like that was second best. Either that or the phasing roll. Onslaught 10 seconds? 10 seconds is a long time. Usually it's 4 seconds or something like this. But anyway, 10 seconds, pretty cool. And that allowed me to drop Frenzy of Onslaught, which means Frenzy charges are more reliable, higher damage uptime there, and just better Onslaught uptime, of course, you know, running around the map, what have you. So that's it for the gear. We'll move over to the gems. One change here is the substitution of Trinity out for increased critical damage support. So I mentioned before, you know, if there was another, I might have mentioned this, but if I had a 7th link in the last build, it would have been increased critical damage, not Mirage Archer, not with trying to kill the spires and stuff. It's too risky. Mirage Archer, you know, maybe any other league, but this league, these would be the links to go for. If I didn't have the enhanced support, I didn't think that far. I'm not really sure what I'd do. I mean, again, it would be Mirage Archer or... Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll just pick whichever one is the highest damage. Oh yeah, I suppose Hypothermia support would probably be best, but it's not that great. But yeah, actually Hypothermia support probably the best after that, so glad I remembered that one. Okay, but anyway, all the other links are exactly the same, so I'm not even going to talk about them, really. Let's just move on over here. Again, Frenzy, not Frenzy of Onslaught. Mana Forge Arrows, Life Tap, Awaken Cast on Crit, Sniper's Mark instead. Now you might have noticed I was doing more damage. The last one had more clear with the Sniper's Mark and just higher overall damage single target against enemies, so I think that's to be expected. Gonna be more damage, less leech, less reliable endurance charges, no endurance charges unless you have it to work around with like Elegant Hubris or a small cluster or something like that. Enduring Composure it is. And then Punishment still involved, so that's cool. Still get the Debilitate out in terms of AoE, and still do a ton of extra damage to enemies in general, which is pretty nice, of course. Also, we got down here Immortal Call, cast and damage taken, low rolls Berserk, and Petrified Blood. It was Skitterbots here, the Petrified Blood was in the other one. But anyway, now I have 3 big Rs, so we got Haste, Hatred, and Grace. So Haste is not crazy valuable. I was going to go Haste for some really cool options with the Watcher's Eye, like permanent Haste, or permanent phasing while Haste is on. But I found that which was taking Jewel, which I'll show you in a second, that gave me phasing anyway, so... But at any rate, this build a little slower than the last one. So with the Haste in here, that's really good, and kind of re-up the speed of the build by putting Haste back in. So that's cool. Maybe, you know, you could do a different 50% or perhaps, but, you know, you could even do something like... let's see, I was thinking of a couple aura combos like Arctic Armor would actually be pretty nice, especially against Abyss, for example. Well, we got one more link left, so we got Precision, Arrogance, Dread Banner, and Vitality exactly the same as the last one. So, the gems, not that many changes. Really, again, TLDR, just a Sniper's Mark instead of Warlord's Mark, increased critical damage support instead of Trinity, and then Haste instead of Skitterbots. I think that's it. So, very similar build overall, and then, you know, the Warden of the Maji is the big difference there. Now we'll move on to Jewels. So with Jewels, I'll start with that which was taking Jewel. So I realized that I was going to have an issue with capping my crit, at least without Headhunter buff. So one big thing I could do is get this roll on here, critical strike chance baseline, while at maximum power charge is very strong here. Still need to gain adrenaline when reaching low life. And then the phasing, you know, again, I was going to do Watcher's Eye mob, but this helps save me the issue of losing damage on the Watcher's Eye mob by not doubling up on the Hatred Watcher's Eye, in which case I got the phasing. So, very, very strong Jewel here. And then the cannot take reflected elemental damage you know, with the Mana Forge Link support, I couldn't run Elemental Reflect. Now I can, which is pretty cool. Just the quality of life there. It doesn't actually improve the build technically of that mod. But very strong, that which was taking Jewel in its own right. Can't remember what I paid for it. I don't think it was even a mirror, actually, but it might have been less than that. Can't remember, but anyway, that Jewel is a little bit different than the other one. The other one was movement baseline speed, cannot go below baseline movement speed, which I really do like that. And then it had Fizz as extra random element, which was also really strong for Trinity. And then it had Power Charge on Crit, which Storm Rider is now involved, so that was cool to get that in there. Storm Shroud, the same Corrupted Blood immunity is there. We got the Focal Point, because I'm running the five big ones here with Gathering Winds, Endless Munitions, Far Shot, Ricochet, and then Focal Point. And Focal Point's the most expensive one because there's the least valuable mid one here. Projectile damage, cast speed. So only if you have like an unlimited budget should you actually get that one instead of a different one. But yeah, that's what I did. Watcher's Eye here. There it is. The double damage. The 2 highest damage rolls. Really need the crit damage on here. Didn't do the conversion because I got the conversion taken care of down here. But anyway, unaffected by temporal chains while affected by haste is pretty cool, actually. You get some use out of that since I'm no longer reducing the effect of curses. Temp chains is the worst curse overall for the build while mapping. So that's cool to have that in there. Let's see, the medium clusters are the same. A little bit of bonus leech there, but you know, I got the usual leech down here. No longer double 1 passive voices, now just one passive voice. And I just kind of like having the leech here. This is my preferred setup. Normally when I make a character like this, I like 1 passive voices and then 1 8 passive one here, and then not a 12 passive cluster usually, in part because I have Supreme Ostentation and Progenesis, so I don't really need the Chaos Res all that bad. Anyway, so got a different Elegant Hubris in here. And I guess we'll just go ahead and warp this over into passives from the jewel. So now with the passives, we'll take a look at what this Elegant Hubris gives, which is pretty strong. We got some Chaos Res. Hey, that's nice. Nice Chaos Res. We got Crit Multi. Very strong there. We got an Endurance Charge every second if you've been hit recently. It's one of the big reasons why I like Elegant Hubris is this option enables me to get Endurance Charges back into the build even without Warlord's Mark. Very good to have 80% shock avoidance, of course, in conjunction with Storm Shroud and the thick skin wheel. And then projectile attack damage, so the highest damage passive here. So I would say that I'm getting less damage than the other one, because the other one has double 80% projectile, or sorry, but yeah, double 80% projectile and 15% attack speed. This has crit multi, 80% projectile, and no attack speed. One. But anyway, pretty strong, and I really like it, especially because I'm able to link into the Leech Mastery and the Mana Mastery, which is actually required to give me all of the aura efficiency here with 74. And I even got, you know, what is it? I have, I think, yeah, at least one source of 2% reservation efficiency of skills. The Thread Hope. I didn't mention the Massive and the Large Thread of Hope before when I was talking about the jewels. Forgot about that, but yeah, they're identical to before. Unlocking all kinds of really nice goodies like Multi-Shot, Master Fletcher, Primeval Force, One with Nature, Quick Step, Aspect of the Eagle, all in there. The Massive Wheel giving me a lot of great things too. Would normally like to get, you know, maybe Harrier and or Hired Killer. Just don't have the passive sword, and you know, I could drop this medium cluster here, but I think it's actually pretty important for the shock threshold, especially. Any chance to freeze to do double damage without Fury of Nature. Really hard to reach that maximum shock threshold, so that's part of why that's in there. Okay, and then the rest of the passives here, we got Fangs of Frost in here. It just gives a lot of damage. You know, I could drop this and get conversion on the Hatred Watcher's Eye, but this is actually a pretty strong wheel if you're doing pure cold. It is a lot of extra damage, and to get the conversion there quickly and efficiently is really nice. Still got the usual down here. Still got suppression capped, so no problem there. And yeah, I already kind of mentioned these here. Endless Munitions, Ricochet, Gathering Winds, Far Shot, and Focal Point. Those 5. That's actually pretty meta there. And then what's not meta, of course, is the Warden of the Maji choice. So for anyone out there who laments the idea of losing the rucksack, I'm telling you, Detect Evil, way, way bigger deal than the rucksack, I promise you. Also, one cool thing about this is you get an extra 10% wisps. You get more small nodes than normal with this side. So I know people are like, oh, but what about the blue? I think yellow is actually better than blue overall. Once you get a certain baseline, like if you're doing maps that have like 10k, yellow becomes the best color, essentially, at the highest. Like, I'd rather have high yellow than high blue once we're talking about like 9 to 10k plus wisp map. That's what I've seen. Drop more mirrors that way, so take it from me. Tinctures, and then increased effect also, again, getting some of the defenses back into the build by way of 30% increased Progenesis effect. Definitely strong there. And also nice to have 4% quant increase on the Divination Distillate too, thanks to Nature's Concoction. So I really like the Warden of the Maji. I do actually like it better overall, but for the last build, I think it made more sense to do the Primalist. But here with the Shock, the pure Shock Tincture, that's really strong, really nice. And I definitely feel good about picking Warden of the Maji for that. Okay, so that'll be it for the passives. I think I kind of mentioned all the ones that are important. I got a few other things I just kind of glazed over. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the passives are the same as before. That's it for the passives. So I mean, you can see this is going to be a shorter video than the last one because we're kind of blazing through here. Not really spending too much time on things that aren't different. So if you kind of want to get a little bit more detail, you're going to have to watch the part 1 of the video, the other build, which is more peculiar and interesting build anyway, but this one perhaps better. I don't know. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you think it is. Chance to hit's not 100%. Interesting. Well, that's probably because I don't have blind in the build anymore. No more blind. But yeah, we have all the numbers here. You can see there 105% increased quantity. I did manually give myself 30% increased flask effect on Divination Distillate and Genesis, so that is where these numbers are coming from. Still got some nice leech. Still got some nice, maximum hit physical taken. Well, let me make this a little bit more proper here. Remove from Mortal Call, 20k. So this was, I think, if I remember correctly, I think this number was 24k last time. So in terms of just the max fizz hit, a fair bit more defense from the last build, as mentioned before. And I don't know, everything else is there. You can take a look at the PoE if you want and kind of look at the calculations, get a good sense of that. Let's go ahead and move on into the config, where everything is absolutely rigged to the brim of essentially maximum buffs. So 106 million DPS is only true if you have essentially everything up. And again, trying to be transparent with you guys, I like posting everything in here. I said it last video, I like checking everything in here, so that's where the starting point is. So you kind of understand, oh, this is maximally what the build is capable of doing in maps. And then if you want, the enemy's no longer shocked, whoo, look at the damage loss there. Let's start with this, actually. This is really interesting. So you can see how much damage I lose if I remove shock from the build, right? At maximum shock threshold. Remember the number, 106 million DPS here. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to give myself 3 additional projectiles. And, okay, all right. The number's a little bit different here. So almost the same. Almost the same as the other one. But, the interesting thing is, like, when it comes to Headhunter buffs, you get, like, the Ballista buff and a few other things that just give you a flat increase number of projectiles. It becomes pretty obvious that having Shock is more damage, especially with Headhunter buffs. It's going to be more damage because it will, the more arrows you shoot, the more Headhunter buffs you steal that give you additional arrows, the flatter that increased damage becomes, as well as, of course, the fact that it's harder to hit everything with every arrow. Of course, so 8 and 8 count here, it stands for all the secondary projectiles. This does assume that an enemy got hit by every single secondary projectile. Not very realistic in terms of every hit. Also, this is like the perfect projectile travel distance. If this were to be moved down, I do less damage. If it's moved up, I do less damage. But at 70, basically maximum damage. That's because I forgot to mention this, but I am running point blank plus far shot. I think it's pretty groovy combo to do point blank and far shot at the same time. You know, I can remove point blank and then do a little bit more damage, but then I'll do a lot less damage shotgunning. I'm up close. So I like having both if possible. It's just for the price of one passive point. Not that big of a deal. Innervate and Rampage coming in from the weapon swap if they're available. Still got endurance charges, all that stuff there. Fortify, of course, is not going to be up 100% of the time. So you could untick that to see where it's at. Adrenaline is pretty much up 100% of the time under normal circumstances. The Rage, not always there. Berserk's not always there. So, you know, Berserk, you can just uncheck this if you want to get a better idea. So, you know, if you start unchecking a lot of different things, you will see the damage will go all the way down to like, I don't know, maybe 10 million or less even if you were to like just uncheck almost everything in the config. But yeah, that's, you know, just trying to let you know that's how it is. That's how I set up the POB. And yeah, as a little bit of a side point, definitely got some feedback from the first video. A lot of people are reporting that they're not too keen on having everything checked here. Again, I'm trying to do this is what I would want to see. There's nothing that irks me personally more than somebody giving a nice you know, build showcase, and then the path of building just doesn't even having like literally no number here. Or it's like obviously a mapping build, and it's like, you know, let's put pinnacle boss numbers in there and show you what the build does against bosses, which I don't care about really. I want to see like, you know, what is the build capable of doing on all cylinders active, right? And then I'll go in and I'll start on checking things, because I may not even realize what's there. Like the average person probably didn't realize Debilitate is even in this build. But you can see the effective health is increased by the fact that Debilitate is in here, thanks to punishment. So again, just a little bit of a side point, but yeah, maybe we'll extend that conversation for another time. But anyway, that's it for the path of building. Soul of Lunaris, Tsukuhama for maximum defenses. And yeah, there we go. So I guess that's basically it for the build, and this again is the last build of the league. We'll not be doing anything else as far as the build creation for this league. We'll be looking into, of course, league starters for the next league coming up here in a while. I guess we got at least a month left of the league. It's assuming that's a 3-month league, so we'll see. But it's been quite a wild ride, and I was quite delighted at how well this build performed. I had the idea just kind of spur the moment about switching back to Warden of the Maji, going for the Shock Tincture and getting Sniper's Bark back in, and I was pleasantly surprised how strong it was, especially with the tankiness side of it. One thing I forgot to mention from before, closing out, Blast Freeze is extremely strong with Abyss because you can't do enough damage to actually freeze the really dangerous rares that come out of there. However, Abyss, the abyssal spires and projectiles constantly spawning tiny little monsters that have essentially no health. So what happens is, when you're just holding right click and just firing it at everything, the little monsters are dying quickly and getting frozen, and those freezes are latching on to the big mobs. And so that's why it really takes hardly any damage at all. Functions essentially like permanent stun in a way. Maybe a little less reliable than permanent stun, but you know, still pretty strong. And especially for Abyss, it's quite powerful. I highly recommend, if you're just doing like a meta tornado shot build, try Blast Freeze in there. You can link it up nicely with Storm Rider and remove Power Charge on Crit Link wherever it is in your build. So it's really powerful. I highly recommend it. Probably the most underappreciated aspect of the build in terms of the defensive capabilities. So that's it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is a couple of cool builds. Again, this one's definitely a little more meta than the last one, but still a little off, I guess. So I want to hear what you have to say on this build, and then, you know, let me know how your league's going, how many mirrors you've farmed up, and if you're interested in doing a build like this, which one you think is better. I look forward to your comment. I'll talk to you in the next video.